Welcome, everyone, to another fantastic episode of Double Book. Today on the show, I'm joined by a man who has forever changed the way that I look at mushrooms. And no, not in a culinary way. He's the scribe of spore-soaked streets, the fungal punk forger of noir nightmares, the mastermind behind the moldiest murder mystery you will ever read. Please welcome the author of Mushroom Blues, the one, the only, Adrian Gibson. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing very well, man. That was the best intro I've ever had. Thank you so much.
I tried, man. I tried.
That was wonderful. I am like all in on being a fungal forager. But thank you for having me. I'm very, very happy to be here.
I'm really happy that you're on. To geek out a little bit with you. Really excited that you're here. Mushroom Blues absolutely blew me away. And I'm dying to go through and talk spores, noir, all things fungal punk with you. But for those not familiar with your work, what's a elevator pitch for Mushroom Blues?
So Mushroom Blues is my debut novel. It's in the background, but I'll just like zoom in on it a little bit there. It's my debut novel, first book in the Hoffman Report series, but also the first introduction to the wider Fungalverse, which is the fictional shared universe that I've created and have a bunch of stuff planned for. But Mushroom Blues in particular, as you've said, fungal noir, fungal punk noir is kind of the way I'm going for it. But yeah, basically just like throw True Detective and District 9 and Jeff Vandermeer and China Mieville in a blender, and you'll get something that is as weird as you'll get when you open the pages of Mushroom Blues. But the story is about Henrietta Hoffman. She's a homicide detective, a human who is basically sent to this city of Neokanoko, which is the capital city of Hapon. And Hapon is an island nation, an isolated island nation of fungal people. So these are literally fungal human hybrids. And what has happened is the humans from Henrietta's country have invaded Hapon and are now colonizing it. So the colonizers are now colonizing the colonizers. And what happens is Henrietta is investigating a dead child who's washed up on a beach. And so the story is very much a police procedural murder mystery where she's traversing the city of Neokanoko in order to solve the mystery, solve the murder, but she has to team up with Koji Nameko, who's the only fungal cop on the police force. And Henrietta herself is racist. She's discriminatory. She's repulsed by fungi. And so this case really tests her limits in all kinds of ways.
I love it. It's such a great book. It was a great sell, but there's so much more to this story that I know you can't get into it because of spoilers, but it's such a great book. I was soaked in from the very beginning of this book. And we have a good friend, Grifton, jumped on. Hey, Grifton. He says, I hate mushrooms, but I'll be reading this book as well. There's a part.
I'm glad that people who dislike mushrooms are willing to take a chance on it.
It's a great one, Grifton.
It's not going to make you like mushrooms any more than
it's going to make you not like mushrooms. There's some parts in there that get them without like it gets crazy. When you get to the book, Grifton, reach out. I'll talk to you about. There's one scene that gets very
body horror.
Horror, yes, in the book. So getting into your journey to becoming a writer, what was that push for you to go, hey, I think this is the route I kind of want to go and write a story?
Honestly, like I've talked to a lot of friends about it at this point, and a lot of friends who are fellow authors or fellow debut authors. I know, my friends in the Break-ins, which is our debut author Discord group. So many of us honestly started writing because of of COVID and the pandemic. Because I found myself in a really weird place. It was like I spent nearly 7 years as a full-time professional tattoo artist, and I had a tattoo studio here in Quito. But when the pandemic hit, it was like so many businesses were closing down, including mine, because lockdowns and all these things that were in effect just sidelining all of the, I would say, sort of extraneous parts of the marketplace, of the economy, things that weren't necessarily essential. So of course, grocery stores and places like that, gas stations, whatnot, are essential, but who's going to really shell out for a tattoo in the middle of a pandemic, especially when it's such like an intimate and sort of like biologically invasive process and art form. And so, yeah, I had to shut down my tattoo studio, which was really disappointing. But at the same time, my wife was pregnant at the time. So my first son was born in August of 2020. And so all these lockdowns were happening and we were stuck at home. And so it gave me a lot of time to really think about, what do I want to do? Where do I want to go? What are dreams that I've had that have kind of been pushed aside in place of other things? And I really loved being a tattoo artist, don't get me wrong, but I was already getting tired at that point of the industry. So it was a very good opportunity for me to really think deep about, what do I want to do? And writing is something that I've always wanted to do, in the sense that I've grown up reading. I love books. I've just been devouring books since I was a kid. And I did a lot of fan comics when I was growing up as well. So I had like binders and binders of fan comics of like, just like my favorite stuff, like some random pages on like The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings or the Chronicles of Narnia, or like the shows that I was watching, like Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon and The Simpsons and stuff like that. So I always experimented with storytelling and visuals kind of in combination. And so, yeah, when I was at that point, like, my son's coming, what am I doing? And so I kind of went deep into it and did a lot of world building, but my world building tends to be quite visual. So just a lot of illustrations, a lot of experimenting with, how does this world look? How do the fungal people look? And the fungal people themselves are kind of like an evolution of something that started as like cheeky tattoo designs that then morphed into this entire fictional world. And so, yeah, like I started writing a lot more and experimenting with that. And then at the same time during the pandemic, I decided that I was going to start blogging again. And then that's when I became a part of Fanfi Addict, which is a SFF book blog. And early on in that process, I was doing a few months of like reviews and things like that. And I was like, actually, you know what? I kind of want to do a podcast. And I just said, like, screw it. Like, does anyone want to start a podcast with me? And everyone said no. And then I was like, okay, I'll start it myself. And that's when I started SFF Addicts, which is the podcast that I started back in 2021 and currently host with MJ Kuhn and Greta Kelly. And that was basically just my selfish way of saying, like, I just want an excuse to talk to authors about stuff and learn as much about writing as I possibly can. Because I studied English literature at university, but I was like, well, I don't want to go back to school. So what's the next best thing that I can do that is basically like constantly learning from very talented people who have a lot of wisdom and a lot of knowledge to share. So I was like, okay, I'll start a podcast. And that basically got the ball rolling. And we're coming up on like 4 years since I started that. And honestly, like, I couldn't have imagined where we're at now back when I started this in 2021, and the amount of stuff that I've learned, but also the amount of knowledge that I'm able to pass on to other people in the community. So other authors and other people who are, just starting out, aspiring to get to a certain point of publication, or people who are active writers and just want to keep learning and honing their craft is really, really cool. So in the end, it ended up being like the writing and the podcasting in conjunction, kind of feeding into each other, which was really beautiful.
So getting a lot of that inspiration from talking with authors and hearing their process and hearing how excited they get was getting you more excited with, hey, I want to do this.
Exactly.
Behind the scenes, you're building that world in your head.
Yep.
So that's cool.
And like, and asking questions that are directly applicable to like what I want to learn. So be like, oh, we're going to do a panel on, X, Y, and Z, because these are things where it's like, I want to learn about that. Kind of selfishly.
With character arcs. All right, we're doing a panel on character arcs.
No, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. So all in all, it was just a beneficial experience for everybody. It's like the authors get to share their knowledge and promote their work. And then I got to learn a ton and ask really specific questions. And at the same time, anybody who's watching, who's listening to these episodes can really take a lot out of them. So yeah, I mean, I'm just really, really happy that I started doing that, because I think it was like my best foothold into writing craft, but also into the SFF community, and meeting a ton of other authors, and now people who, you know, like both of my co-hosts I met because they were guests on the podcast, and then it just ended up being like, we've really clicked, and like, do you ever think like you'd want a podcast? Yeah, actually, yeah. And then we end up becoming co-hosts. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I've watched your earlier stuff, and then Elizabeth's your newest one, correct? She just started recently, right? Like 6 months ago, 7 months ago.
You mean Greta?
Greta. Sorry, why did I say Elizabeth? Yes, Greta.
Yeah, so Greta started in January of this year, and then MJ
Yeah.
started 2 years before that.
And MJ's been gone for a little while.
Yeah, I mean, she just got overloaded with work, which is why we ended up bringing on a third co-host, so that we can kind of mix and match. If anybody ever needs a bit of time off, or you know, if there's ever emergencies or anything like that, it's really easy for us to just dip in and out and mix it up. So
yeah, I love your dynamics between you guys. Like, I watched the most recent one with Abercrombie.
Yep.
And I haven't watched the whole thing yet, but just the beginning of the four of y'all talking, I was like, I feel like he needs to be number 4. Convince him to be number 4 and randomly jump in and hang out. Because that was so good. I think I watched about half of it before I had to deal with kid stuff, but it was a lot of fun to go through and watch.
Oh, it was Abercrombie's amazing, and I had Greta and I had the benefit of meeting him in person last year at Worldcon. So we already had a little bit of that in-person rapport, which is nice, but it's also just like a testament to Abercrombie's personality and his humor and his ability to just kind of roll with the punches and just not take things too seriously, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Definitely, he was talking about, I used to throw kids in lockers before I started fighting.
Is Abercrombie a nerd or a jock?
Oh, so before we jump into the next question I wrote down, I'm really curious. We have Mark that just jumped in. How's it going, Mark?
Hi, Mark.
He really thinks your covers,
thank you,
and book is really great. And I
shout out to Felix Ortiz, my cover artist. And if you get the hardcover, you take that dust jacket off. Sorry for bumping my mic. You take that dust jacket off, and you get like the full naked artwork on there.
Love it. I need to end up getting that hard copy of it, because I like love the artwork in it, and I think it's so cool that you're an artist who goes through and can visually go through and be like, this is what this looks like. This is what this looks like. There's only one other author that I'm familiar with that does that same thing, and that, I don't know if you're familiar with Gerald Brom.
No.
So he leans more into the horror aspect, and he's been writing for a while, and he does the same thing. All of his artwork within his books are his drawings. So he goes through and like, this is what this character looks like in my head. I think that is so cool, because you can go in and go in. You can explain a lot to a cover artist and an artist, but they're not going to get down to the details of what you visualize in your head. So I think it's so cool. It's like, okay, here's a sketch. Now do it in your design and put things together, which I think is pretty cool. So I think that's awesome.
I mean, even recently, I just finished up. I'll show them to you off air, because I can't reveal them just yet. But I've got a special edition coming out at some point, and part of that was I wanted to include some of my original drawings. So I did a portrait of Henrietta and a portrait of Koji that'll go into the book, which is really cool, because it's like I did like collaborate with Felix on the cover, and we talked a lot about it. But like the exact like facial features and kind of design of both of those characters, it's like I left it up to his interpretation. But the versions that I drew, it's like, this is how they look in my head.
Yeah, and that's awesome. I can't wait to go through and look at it, and then definitely be able to see it in person, because I'm probably going to go through and end up getting it. So jumping into hobbies. So you mentioned comics, you mentioned a few other areas, tattoo artists, things like that you're interested, that you've done and you're excited to do. But I'm curious, when you're not creating those fungal punk noir nightmares, what do you do to decompress? Is there any hobbies that you have that aren't spores related?
I guess it's like, I mean, it's kind of a cheat, but it's like I love going out in nature and I love hiking, and inevitably I'll come across mushrooms. So there's some cross pollination there. But yeah, mostly being out in nature. I've got two young boys. One is coming up on 5 and the other is 2.5. So, I mean, we spend a lot of time in the backyard and everything, but I love just taking them out to different places around Ecuador. And we have the benefit of having so much close by where it's like, we can go to the mountains, we can go like, hike up a volcano, or we can go to like really like lush river valleys and almost like semi-tropical rainforest type environments. So for me, it's just like I love being out in nature, and I think that's kind of like for most humans, that's a very alleviating experience to be like, life is stressful enough. We spend enough time staring at screens and like looking at like angular shapes and stuff like that. So going out somewhere where it's asymmetrical and unpredictable is really nice to just kind of let the mind wander. And, I always have like really great ideas when I'm out in nature and I'm just exploring, and my sons know I love mushrooms. So it's like when we go out for walks and stuff like that, they'll like show me like, they got like a different vantage point. So they'll show me ones that I may not have spotted. And it's been really cool to be able to teach them about that, but also different aspects of nature, to just be able to share that knowledge and that experience is really nice.
So I don't know if I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, so the same age range as your boys. So my boys, when we like going out and go to the park and like being out in nature, and then the crazy amount of games that they go through and think up is amazing. Recently they were pirates and going on adventures and fighting dragons just randomly in the field and playing. And I'm like, it's just crazy how kids just imaginations go all over the place.
Yeah. It's like, I applaud any human being who's able to take the imagination and it's just like the freedom for capacity that you have as a child, where it's like, there are literally no limits. If you wanted, like my kids will just like start playing with each other, or like they'll play alone, and my oldest, he'll just like start mumbling to himself as he's playing this. Like, it's so cute, man. He's just making up like storylines of like what these things are doing. He might be playing with cars, or he might be playing with Lego or something like that. But I think it's really beautiful when human beings are able to tap into that, because as we get older, there are just different forces throughout life, whether it's cultural or societal, or for a lot of people it's economic, and the work that they have to do in order to survive and to pay for food and like housing and all this kind of stuff. Those kinds of things really disrupt the rhythm that we just start developing as kids. And the older and older you get, the less likely it is that you're going to be able to tap into that kind of freedom and imagination and imaginative play. Like, I like to think of it as play. And for me, that's why I love art. That's why I love writing, is because those are my forms of imaginative play and ways for me to just experiment with like the weirdest reaches of my mind. And it's really tapping into the stuff that we did as kids.
Uh-oh. Did I lose you, Adrian?
I'm still here.
Oh, you're still okay. You're back. All right, okay. Cool. Yeah. I was like, there's no way he stopped with that face going on.
You had your eyes closed like this, so I was like, okay. He's.
I was imagining it, what it was like being a kid again. That's what I was doing.
Good. Daydreaming. That's what, or night daydreaming. We're in the evening.
Daydreaming.
But I love that these creative outlets allow adults to really tap into the stream of consciousness that that society kind of beats out of us, unfortunately. Not like literally beats out of us, but just like, psychologically and emotionally and mentally kind of sucks away as we start to get older, and especially when we enter the workforce. So yeah, man, it's really cool what kids are able to do. And as an adult, as like a parent, to be able to witness what they're going through and like kind of see it through fresh eyes and the wonder that you see them experience all the time is like, okay, this is part of like the magic of parenting. Obviously there's like the other side of it where there's like tantrums and all that crap that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, but you take the good with the bad with anything you do, right?
Yeah. And definitely seeing them see things for the first time, stuff that
Yeah.
you're used to seeing. Like we went and saw fireworks recently for the first time, like them actually going somewhere and seeing fireworks. And I'm like, I don't care about fireworks, but seeing those kids get so excited for fireworks, I was right there with them. I was like, I'm excited with you guys.
Yeah.
Like I'm here with you. I get it now why this is cool. So it's fun experiencing things for the first time again with your kids. And I feel like that's a big part of parenting.
Yeah. And I think if you're, you know, denying yourself the possibility to connect with that experience that your kid is having, then you're losing out on like half the magic of being a parent, you know? Because you like, obviously we come from a sort of new generation when it comes to parenting styles and especially like everything that we have around us technologically and whatnot. But like, you know, our parents and our parents' parents, a lot of dads would just be like, oh, shut up. Like, you know, who cares about fireworks, blah, blah, blah. But then for us, it's really nice to be able to say like, this firework experience, this my kid watching this is a moment where I can really connect with them. And if you deny yourself moments of connection, that's denying yourself the possibility for a deeper relationship, whether it's with your kids or any other human being.
Exactly. Going through and being obsessed with your own internal whatever's going on in your head.
Yeah.
Rather than being in the moment with your kids.
Exactly.
You're losing out on those bonds because your kids are only so small for so long, and you're building those memories. And do you want your kids' memories of you being, hey, leave me alone, I gotta deal with my own crap, or I'm here with you in the moment?
Right, we can share the crap, you know. I can share my crap with you.
Yeah. Oh man, that's cool. All right, I got a question before we get back to your writing. I did write something down. I'm really curious. Is there something surprising that you're really into that we're unaware of? Is there anything behind the scenes that you're really into?
I mean, I don't necessarily know if it's something that would surprise people, because it's like if you watch me on Instagram, like I'll dip into it here and there, but like I really love cooking. You know, like I came from the household, like North American household, where there wasn't a ton of, let's say, culinary experimentation. And not to, you know, poo-poo my parents or anything like that, but like I really awakened on a culinary level when I left home upon graduation and then moved to Vancouver, where I studied English literature. So it's like while I was studying, I worked at a restaurant. And it was at this restaurant that I actually met my friend Nicholas Eames, author of Kings of the Wild, if anyone's read that. So working at that restaurant and meeting all the people there, but also indulging in like all the different cuisines that were available in Vancouver, you know, whether it's like Indian and Pakistani or Southeast Asian or different types of African cuisines, Chinese cuisines, you know, Japanese food, all this different kind of stuff. And I just got really into like weird things that a lot of people probably think are absolutely disgusting. like if someone told me like you have to eat this liver, I would be like, yes, please, thank you so much. Whereas a lot of people would just be like gagging. But from that moment on, it was like I love to interact with food, and whether that was like trying food out at the restaurant, trying food out at other restaurants, or cooking at home. And because a lot of the people I met at that restaurant were chefs, and hanging out with them after work and stuff like that, like we would cook together. And so I learned a lot through them, observing in the kitchen at work, but also observing and collaborating with them at the kitchen at home. And so since that point, like I've just been in love with cooking. And now as a dad, I'm like, my wife and I bonded over food. That was something that she was like, "Oh, wow," kind of thing. That really won her over. And she and I have had a really deep connection through food. And so we've passed that on to our kids and really brought that into the experience at home in terms of introducing our kids to a ton of different things, especially here in Ecuador as well, because we have so much more stuff available in terms of fresh produce, in terms of types of dishes and stuff that nobody in North America or other places would think of eating, like guinea pig, for instance. So like we think of guinea pig growing up as like, that's a pet. And here they're like, that's food. And so it is really crazy to see how different cultures interpret different animals and different ingredients. And so for us, it's been really cool to just be able to start showing our kids different things. And my kid's like, he's not even 5 and he like loves sushi. So, cool. So it's really amazing to just be able to share that love with them and be able to prepare food for them and cook with love and have that connection with their kids, where it's like, they're helping us out in the kitchen, teaching them how to use utensils and how to cut vegetables and things like that. So yeah, man, it's just a very big part of my life and something that I love sharing with other people, and something that I especially learned in Vancouver and when I lived in Berlin afterwards is like cooking for people is a very, very powerful way of showing how much you care about them. So my friends and I, when we would hang out in Berlin, it was like we would just like pick someone's house and we would go there and we would cook.
That's awesome.
And that was kind of like the way we bonded.
Was through food. All right, question. But when are we going to get a Mushroom Blues cookbook? The food of Mushroom Blues. If you haven't thought about it,
I actually no, it's like one of my best friends in British Columbia. He used to be a chef, and he's not a chef anymore. He's a carpenter. He's just one of those like jack of all trades, but he kicks ass at everything he does. Yeah. So he and I have actually talked about potentially collaborating on like creating a mushroom cookbook for not necessarily just Mushroom Blues, but like a mushroom cookbook for the Fungal Verse type thing. So yeah, it's definitely like that idea is there and it has been there. And also the novella I'm working on right now, which is set between Mushroom Blues and book 2. The main character is a sushi chef. And so the whole plot of this book centers around like food and cooking.
Perfect timing. Perfect timing. We can
man.
get a small cookbook. It doesn't need to be anything crazy. Just like a few.
No. But it's like if it's me, then it's like I can't half-ass it. I have to, like I have to draw like hand draw illustrations and all that kind of stuff. I have to, make it a little bit more invigorating as a reading and cooking experience.
And I think it would be awesome going through and seeing people make your mushroom chaos that you're going to bring out in your head. So I think that'd be too cool.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Excited for that. I'm a big cooking guy too. I love grilling as I like grilling. That's kind of my favorite thing.
Dude, if you love grilling, you'll love South America. There's like so much good grilled food down here.
Awesome.
Especially Argentina.
I need to, I haven't left the United States. We're thinking about leaving next year, taking the kids across the river, maybe to Scotland, Ireland is what we're thinking about doing. Nice. Starting there and then seeing how that works and how the kids handle that flight.
Baby steps, man. I mean, that flight is still quite long, but baby steps. Yeah.
And then start moving from there. Because the dream is, since I do work from home, taking the summer off and being like, all right, kids, we're not living here for 2 months or a month and a half.
Dude, that would be amazing.
Like jumping around to different spots.
We're skipping out on hurricane season.
Skipping out. Well, that's in October. We're stuck for that. But yeah, skipping out for the summer and be like, hey, we're going to go to wherever for a month. And the kids have like actual culture they can go through and live with. So when they get back in the summer, it's not just like, oh, I was at the beach or I just played video games all summer. It's like, no, I hiked the mountains over in fill in the blank where we were. So that's kind of the vision and the dream. We'll see how that happens in the next few years when the kids start getting a little bit older. So it should be fun.
Dude, fingers crossed. That sounds like a good plan.
It's gonna be good.
Open their eyes to the world. Honestly, that's been the best thing I've ever done in my life. Is just living in other places, living in other countries, other continents, and just understanding like how other people live. Is good on like a fundamental level as a human being to understand that it's like, yeah, there is so much difference in kind of like the overarching kind of cultural layers that each person inhabits. You know, it's like, yes, this person is Italian. That person's life is baked in with their personal history, but also like their ethnicity, their nationality, their family, the cuisine, just so many different things, the language. But then at a fundamental level, going to different countries really makes you understand. And it's like, man, nobody's that different. You know, we're all really, we have these basic human desires. And despite the fact that going to different places and seeing that, okay, this person's speaking Italian or whatever, I don't speak Italian, but there's still the possibility for connection and an attempt at communication. Like both my parents are deaf, so I'm really like, I speak ASL, and I'm very like, I speak with my body a lot. And so going to new places, and it's like, even if I don't understand their language, I'm still very in tune with how people's bodies convey whatever they want to communicate. And so it's kind of like, yeah, like a hug can go a long way, or just kind of not invading someone's space, but really making them feel comfortable in yours does a lot to invite them into the possibility of connection and like a deeper attempt at communication.
Yeah, going beyond that. And I also want my kids to be okay with change, because I've met a lot of people, and people go through and they're uncomfortable with just leaving their town. And it's like, I only been in the US, but I've lived in all over the place. So I can get up and go somewhere else and be happy as a clam.
Yeah.
I want the kids to feel the same thing, but on a bigger level than my experience. And that's kind of what I'm hoping to get out of this. Because if, kind of like what you did, going, I'm going to move countries, and I want them to be okay with that, and not be like, I don't know if I can do that. I want that self-doubt to go away and be like, you're going to be fine wherever you go.
It's basically, it's kind of like Inception. Like, you're planting this idea in their mind that it's like, it's not something to be afraid of to go to another country. And honestly, like what I've come to learn is so many of the people that I've, including, you know, like my wife, people that have gone away, moved away from the place that they grew up in. It's really telling if that person has moved away and at some point in their life decide, like, you know what, I want to move back to where I grew up. I think a lot of people really go through that, where it's like, you grow up in a place and it's harder for you to appreciate what that place offers. But if you leave and you go see how things are in other parts of the world or other parts of the country, even, you see that, okay, maybe where I came from wasn't so bad. Oh, I'm going to start a family. Maybe raising a kid there was actually a really nice thing. And then you start to remember your childhood much more fondly and realize, like, oh, that was a really nice place to grow up. Even though when you're growing up, especially when you're a teenager, you're just like, oh, this place is shit. I hate it. Like, I hate my school. I hate my mom and dad, blah, 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 blah. But when you leave, you know, it's like that old saying that is so cliche, but it's like, yeah, distance does make the heart grow fonder. And if you feel like my heart is calling me to go back to where I grew up, amazing.
All right, we have a new friend that jumped in. Chris, how's it going, buddy? Yeah, I can't agree more. Love Mushroom Blues. It's so good. And then Mark, yes, Inception. What I do is I have a radio, and I whisper to the kids through the radio when they're sleeping, and try to convince them, like, you're going to move away. So yeah, I do the same thing all the time.
Oh my God, man.
All right, so jumping back into your writing, I'm really curious, what has been the most challenging and rewarding part about writing Mushroom Blues?
I mean, the most challenging part was just writing it. Honestly, like, I think a lot of people underestimate the amount of work that goes into writing a book. I mean, honestly, just in the consumer age that we're in right now, a lot of people underestimate the amount of effort that goes into anything. There's just a very hard to satisfy kind of nature to how people consume things right now, in terms of, like, you know, it's like attention span on TikTok or Instagram Reels or whatever. You know, people are like, oh, you got to grab me in the first 3 seconds. I'm like, well, really? Does it have to be like that fast? Does it have to be like that? And so it is really easy for people to underestimate like how many people worked on like the latest Marvel movie, you know, like literally hundreds and hundreds of people. Like a Marvel movie employs more people than most companies in the world have employees. And so it's really easy to judge just based on like, this is the end quality. But the act of writing a book is very challenging to create a complete narrative that isn't total garbage, and satisfies your personal goals and your personal expectations as a writer, but then putting it out into the world is a completely different thing. I don't think I was prepared for, I was prepared to release it. I wasn't prepared for what came after in terms of, how people would respond to it, or the amount of marketing that I ended up doing, all these different factors that in the end, like I look at it now and I'm like, okay, I'm really happy I did all that. But it has also been a lot of really thinking a lot on my personal relationship with this book that I put out, and the fact that it's out there in the world and anyone can read it, anyone can judge it and criticize it, whether good or bad, right? And it's hard for a lot of authors to put something out there and then receive criticism. Like this job, nobody teaches you how to do this job, and the hardest part of this job is your own self-criticism, but B, external criticism, and how to kind of manage both of those things. Because the act of writing is a lot of self-criticism. The act of publishing is a lot of external criticism. And so it's really hard to kind of navigate your relationship with those things. And yeah, like I'm at a point now where I'm totally cool with external criticism, whether good or bad. And I think it's like the self-criticism part that is still what I'm grappling with as I continue to write and want to improve and want to tell different kinds of stories and whatnot.
So how did you figure out how to manage those external criticisms?
I mean, part of it was just tattooing, honestly, like that there's just so many more stakes when it comes to tattooing. It's like, yeah, putting a book out in the world is like, okay, it is a big thing. It's not something to shirk or whatever. It's like you did something incredible by putting a book out into the world.
Yeah.
But there's no like grave permanence to it. Like if I put a tattoo on somebody and I completely botch it, that to me is just like utterly devastating. Thankfully I've never like completely botched a tattoo. I did a lot of practice on myself in the early days in order to figure out like how to do this craft. But building on what I'd learned from tattooing and building on because the external criticism of tattooing is very intimate, where it's like, here's this one person who I'm tattooing, and it's just me and just them, and seeing their face and seeing how they respond at the end is just like such an immediate and such like a visceral thing, where it's like, okay, our faces are like literally like a few feet away from each other, and I just put this permanent thing on your body. What do you think of it? And so that was a really good launching pad for me to be able to put things out into the world and receive criticism in that respect. Obviously, nobody wants to put a book out there and just get like deluged with 1-star reviews or whatever. But it's like, honestly, a lot of the reviews that have come in for Mushroom Blues, I'm like super, super thankful for all the people who read it and love it. I'm also super thankful for all the people who read it and either hate it or read it and are kind of middling about it, but have valid criticisms about it, because it's like, it is really hard to separate yourself from a project like this while you're writing it and editing it and revising it and blah, blah, blah. And of course, there are going to be things that make sense to you that once it's out in the world, maybe a reader doesn't catch that or wasn't clear enough or it didn't make sense. And so all of the criticisms that have come, like not all of them, I'm being hyperbolic there. A good amount of the criticisms that have come in for Mushroom Blues, I'm like, yeah, I totally know that. Like looking at the book in hindsight, I'm like, yep, that's valid. And thank you for that. And that's something that I'm trying to work on as I apply it to my next projects. So the external criticism thing is like, I welcome it. And I'm at a point where I'm like, yeah, if you're reading my book, if you paid for my book and you're reading it and then you feel inclined to review it or rate it or go into Goodreads or go into Amazon or whatever, for me, that's like a meaningful act where it's like, you spent your dollars on this thing. You could have spent your dollars on anything else, but you spent it on my book. So for me to just completely dump on your opinion because it hurts my feelings, it's like, no, you paid for it. You can have those feelings. You're justified, you know? And for my part, like I've learned to get over that. Like I don't get sad every time I see a 1-star review. I'm like, okay, if I don't feel like reading it, I won't read it. That's totally fine, you know, but it's your prerogative.
I can stop at the star. I can stop there and go, all right, I won't read what you have to say, but
100%, but it's your prerogative because you spent money on it.
All right. I'm curious. You mentioned internal conflicts you're still dealing with, and then I'm going to jump to your question mark. But you said internal criticism you're still working on. Do you mind elaborating a little bit what you mean by that? Are you saying like imposter syndrome? Is that what you're?
That's kind of that. Yeah, that's a part of it. I mean, especially like making it to the finals of SPFBO and ending up tying for first place.
First time ever.
Yeah. So it's like my debut novel and I end up getting tied at first in this massive competition. You know, or like just the amount of people who've bought my book. I'm like, I did not expect this, you know what I mean? So there is an imposter syndrome part of it for sure. But I think a lot more of it comes from, I mean, there was definitely a lot of anxiety when it came to SPFBO, just because it's like, man, it's like a year long. It's too long. You know, like I love Mark Lawrence and I'm very appreciative to the competition and everything that they do for the indie community and indie authors. But a year, man, it's like, or I don't think it's a full year, but it's like a good 11 months. It's a long time. And especially once you make it to the finals, it's kind of like, oh, well, that just like my day just got ruined because I got a bad review from one of the judges, right? And you never know when that stuff is coming. So it's kind of this like constant lingering anxiety type feeling. But then on top of that, it's like when it comes to creativity, I'm a very obsessive person, which in the case of writing books is probably a good thing, because that actually gives you like the impetus to finish it. But at the same time, you know, it's like, I know you probably feel the same way as a dad. When you have a family, when you have kids, it's really hard to distinguish between these certain modes of life where, you know, like you work at home too. So I know you for sure understand where it's like, I'm at home and I have to get this stuff done for work, and you're kind of like in work mode. Right. And it's really hard to, when dad life, like family life, interrupts work life, it becomes this really weird blurring of lines. And when you're so deeply invested in like finishing a thing and interruptions just completely throw you out of whack. And even when you switch from work life to parent life, dad life, you're still thinking about work a lot of the time. And it's really hard to separate those two things. And so for me, like, I know when I was writing Mushroom Blues, like how obsessive I became. And as a result, like I know that I wasn't like the best dad I could be. I wasn't the best husband I could be. Right. And so a lot of my time since finishing Mushroom Blues, on top of like the marketing that I was doing, on top of all that stuff, a lot of it was just like really introspective of time spent figuring out, how do I keep doing this without each book being like such a disruptive part of my life? Because I want to be a good dad. I want to be a good husband. And my relationship with my kids and my wife has been better since Mushroom Blues came out than it was while I was writing it. And so a lot of my self-criticism is kind of like specifically criticism of how I conduct myself when I am deeply invested in a project and start to become uber obsessive and therefore blur the lines between work life or creative life and family life. And trying not to let like my creativity and my work diminish my role as a parent or my role as a husband. Especially like when you said, is like these kids, man, they're only young once. And when they get older, they'll be like, oh, well, dad was like a cranky asshole because he was busy writing a book, you know? So it has taken a lot of work for me to figure out how I want to balance these things and not feeling so pressured, because I know in the world of writing, it's like, keep pumping them out, keep pumping out the books and blah, blah, blah. Like the Amazon algorithm and all these different things. And like, you know, is that really worth me sacrificing my relationship with my kids and my wife? Does it deserve me sacrificing my relationship with my creativity? You know, if I'm pumping out books, like I'm not a factory. Like I want to enjoy this process. I want to enjoy the worlds that I'm creating and the characters that I'm introducing to people. And so it's like, hey man, I'm not gonna rush myself just because market forces tell me to release in a certain pace.
Time frame.
Yeah. So
yeah. And I think the big thing, because here's the thing, it doesn't matter how popular you get as an author. Your kids are always going to see you as dad first.
Yep, exactly.
So it does not matter. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter if you're pushing out a book every 6 months or every 6 years. It really doesn't matter at the end of the day when it comes to the kids and your wife. So yeah, I think that's a good balancing act inside your head of going through like, okay, reflection. It's a great reflection of going through and looking at, okay, how was I the first go around? Now, how can I be better going forward? Because you still want to put that love and compassion into your stories, but still want to have that same commitment. And in the moment, I think we talked about at the beginning of being in the moment with your family during those times. So yeah, I think that's,
I mean, like, is it worth putting love and compassion into my stories when I'm losing love and compassion for my own family? Right. So for me, I'm looking at this in the long term where I'm like, I want to be doing this for a long time, man. Like, I'm a stay-at-home dad and like, this is my full-time gig. Like my family doesn't depend on the money I make from writing. So this is entirely just like up to my own ambition. And for me, it's like, if I'm going to keep doing this for the next, like, 20, 30 years or something like that, like, I don't need to feel so rushed about everything. And it's better that I learn these lessons now and delay a little bit with my next releases in order for me to be feeling more fulfilled as a creator than it is for me to satisfy some demand of like you say, like time frame and that nobody is pressuring me to do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So if nobody else is pressuring me to do it, then why do I have to pressure myself? And it's really amazing when people say like, oh, when's the next book coming? And I'm like, it'll come when it comes. But I'm really, really grateful that you want the next book. Like that means a lot to me.
Yeah. That's the big thing of it, is just finding that balance. So that's good. It's better that you're realizing that now than 20 years down the road going, oh man, I made bad choices.
Yeah. And like, why do my kids hate me?
Why do they not call? Why do they not call me?
Right. My kids are graduated, and yeah, of course they want to leave because dad was a piece of shit. Like I don't want that. I want to have a really good relationship with my kids. I want to be more patient and slow with them. And like childhood doesn't have to be rushed, and neither does a book. So
right. Exactly. All right, Mark, you've waited.
Mark wants to know about tattooing.
So are you ever amazed with yourself when putting a tattoo on someone? Yeah, I was really curious. Have you ever,
dude, I love that experience.
Going like, damn, this is a good one. This is a good one.
Yeah. No, I had that experience all the time. Whereas like, especially I loved it when it was like, the person that I'm tattooing a part of their body that they can't see my face, you know? And I'm just like, I'm beaming the whole time. I'm just like, have such a stupid smile on my face. And then knowing the satisfaction of like, oh man, like the look of excitement on their face is just magical, man. So yeah, all the time, dude, all the time.
I love it. Question: are you when you're writing your story, or specifically writing Mushroom Blues, were you writing it linear, or were you jumping around from scene to scene? Were you like, oh man, I really feel like I need to write this scene, but it could be 100, 200 pages in the book?
No, I'm more of a linear writer, but I would say like when it comes to editing, I'm more like jumping all over the place. Like at first, like I will outline at first, and it'll be super vague. Like it'll just be like a bullet point list of like scene by scene kind of thing. Like here's the beats that are going to happen in the scene, and then, you know, I guess you could call it like discovery outlining or something like that, where I'm going through that process of outlining and kind of figuring out like what the overall framework and flow of this story. And then when I get into it on an individual scene level, I'm like, okay, I kind of know more or less what's happening here. And then that process becomes much more spontaneous, where there are things that come through the act of expanding upon that scene that reveal things to me that might, you know, be like, oh, well, like this happened, like I have to put something like this down the line. And like sometimes I'll go and like, you know, write notes about that scene, or kind of like write like a really rough, sloppy kind of version of it. But then I'll usually go back to where I was in the story. But I usually write with like an ending in mind, knowing like this is where I want them to end up. And like I said, during the editing process is when I jump around, especially where it's like, oh my God, like this particular section is just like disaster. So I need to put some extra attention into that. And usually I let my kind of flurry of a mind decide like that's the scene I kind of need to like work on right now and edit. But I can't pants things. Like I don't know, my friend Ronnie Verdi, if anyone's read the first binding by him, I think it's like, man, it's over 800 pages, and he pants the whole thing, and he pants like the whole second book. I'm like, dude, you're crazy, you're insane. So that to me is amazing. Like it's a really amazing talent. But I also know a lot of people who are pantsers who say like outlining is amazing too. Like it's kind of like being very curious and filled with awe at someone being able to do something that you can't do. So regardless of what kind of mode works for you, there's always going to be like, oh man, like I can't believe you managed to do that, you know? And it's like, well, you wrote like an 800+ page book by pantsing, and he's like, well, just going, just right.
You didn't think anything until the moment.
Yeah.
You know, that's.
Or he writes out like ideas on like postcards and kind of just like maps it out and then just goes with it. And I'm like, dude, you're insane. But you know, but a lot of people who pants would think equally of like, or like my friend, like my co-host MJ Kuhn, she like basically builds her story out in an Excel spreadsheet or like a Google sheet, and then that's her way of outlining. So it's like, man, there are people who are all over the spectrum in this regard. But the fact that all these different methods result in stories and books as like the end result is super, super cool.
So we had a new friend jump in. How's it going? Appreciate you stopping.
Comics and tortillas. Wow.
He's awesome.
I love it.
He's awesome. He's one of the reasons why I don't have to buy comic books anymore. He just posts on them and he talks about what happens in the books.
Dude,
and
nice.
I go, cool, man. I'm all caught up. And then it's like, I'm waiting on his next one. No, his
and does he eat tortillas, or does he review tortillas?
No, he doesn't. Okay. No. I think that's an idea. Add that into your list.
Get a little like crunch. Get a little tortilla crunch when you're talking about comics. Yeah, get some crumbs on the pages.
That's an awesome idea. I love it. So going into your writing, you said you go through, you have an idea of the ending, and then you make a bunch of edits into it. You jump around. I'm really curious. How do you know when your book is quote done? Are you a perfectionist, or are you more like, you know what, this is it, and then release it and then run kind of type? Just curious on.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to writing, I'm like, yeah, just with like any creative endeavor in general. Like, I'm not a perfectionist in that sense. Like, I am a perfectionist, but I do so much on the back end that it kind of makes it easier for me to reach a point when I'm like, yeah, this is good. Like with Mushroom Blues, while I was writing it, I was also formatting it and like doing all the, like I did all the typography for the cover, like I did all the cover design, and then like inside the book, you got all this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So all this was done by me, and I was basically doing all of that while I was still writing and editing the book. And so if I got to the end of the story and still had all of that stuff to do, that would drive my perfectionist brain crazy. Where I would be like, oh man, like I have to, do so much of like the interior formatting, the interior design, blah, 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 blah. It was kind of like I implemented it throughout the writing process and throughout the revision process, such that it was kind of like accentuating my experience with the story, where I was like, oh, you know what, like which graphic would be perfect at like this part of the story, and being able to just take a little break from writing and editing and to work on that kind of stuff. So it's like I'm very much of the mind that doing all of these small steps really, really helps to satiate my perfectionism, I guess. In the sense that, like, yeah, story's done when it's done, man. But I think there's only so far you can go with it. My mind is like, yeah, if you're satisfied enough to send it off to an editor, then don't be picky about anything else.
Well, I think it's very cool of you going through and doing that artwork in there, because you're going through and you're still being creative, but you're using a different part of your creative mind of like, okay, I'm writing and getting into the characters in the story, and then it's like, hey, I'm going to switch this up a little bit to the more of the artist side, your roots of writing Mushroom Blues. So I think that's very cool of being able to go through and bounce back and forth, so you're not getting burned out with one avenue or the other, because then you can
100%.
jump and still be moving step by step with moving farther along within the process, regardless of which side you're doing. So I think that's very, very cool.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I'm doing the exact same thing with my novella right now, where it's like, yeah, the main character's like a sushi chef, and so it's like a lot of the interior design for the book is like made to look like a sushi like restaurant menu type thing. And so I'm able to, like, I have a lot of like hand-drawn like illustrations of like of different types of sushi, or there's a page where it has sushi drawings on it and shows you like different types of sushi. So it's like, here's sashimi, here's nigiri, here's maki and stuff like that. And then on the other page is basically like a drawing of like a tuna fish. But in the context of the world, it's called a fungal fin tuna. So it's like a weird tuna with like mushrooms growing out of it and stuff. And then I have like dotted lines to be like, this is like this particular cut. This is this type of meat. This is more fatty. This is like more lean meat and stuff like that. So it's really cool for me to be able to think about those things in the context of the world, to be like, okay, when it comes to a sushi chef and knowing the different types of different parts of the body to use for different types of sushi, different flavor profiles, all that kind of stuff. And at the same time, to give readers something that's like a little bit extra cool, where it's like, as a self-published author, you do have the flexibility to be like, I'm going to dedicate 2 pages to that. Why not?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
and it grounds it for people going through, like, this world feels like it's been lived in.
Yeah.
Because you're going through like, oh, this is their job, this is their career. And if it was, if you met a real sushi chef, they would be like, oh, this is what this means, and this is this kind of cut. It's like it brings it all together into your world feeling lived in and alive, which I'm a huge fan of that.
Yeah. And it's like, if the visual presentation of a book can augment the experience and make it better. That's where with Mushroom Blues, I was really excited to like make a Spotify playlist for it, to collaborate with two of my friends in Sweden for like a full 8-song like original soundtrack to accompany the book. Which I was then like my friend here in Quito did the production on the audiobook, and we were able to incorporate the soundtrack. So it's like every single chapter starts with original music from the soundtrack. So it's like anybody who listens to the audiobook, it's like that much more immersed in the experience, right? And yeah, just like I'm very much of the mind of having different elements other than just the story itself to understand like the presentation of a book matters. And there's so many different things that you can do to more deeply immerse someone in your story and your world beyond just the story itself.
So speaking of that, is there any specific scene which in Mushroom Blues that feels the most personal to you? Without spoiling anything too crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say when this happens in the book, but there is like a psychedelic experience. And that for me is probably the most deeply personal and like drawing from my own experiences with psychedelics. So I knew I wanted to incorporate that into this story. And it's been really cool to like the chef carpenter friend of mine, when he read the book, was just like, he and I have done psychedelics together and have lots of conversations about them. And so when he read the book and like finished that part, and he was like, "Oh, dude, that was beautiful." Like, so for me, it's so much of the story is like thematically rooted in this character Henrietta going through this experience of awakening and coming to understand the parts of her life that were essentially fabricated and shaped by cultural forces that maybe she doesn't necessarily believe in. So a lot of it comes down to like notions of cultural programming, and this was deeply influenced by the ways in which propaganda and media play into the essentially like a mass hallucination of you look at something like Nazi Germany, or you look at the fervor in the United States after 9/11 and throughout the Iraq, Afghanistan wars. There's just like so much, there's so many layers to the ways in which these cultures are reacting to certain types of messaging. And so the humans, specifically the Caprinians, where Henrietta's from, they're culturally programmed to despise these fungal people. And a lot of this story and especially this psychedelic experience really reconfigure Henrietta's own line of thinking and what she comes to realize, like, do I believe this on like an individual level, or is my country telling me to believe this kind of thing? And so psychedelics was like a really potent tool for, I mean, there's a lot of different moments throughout the book that kind of lead up to this and lay the foundation for it. But psychedelics as a kind of
tool,
yeah, like a tool, but also like a climactic kind of moment for her as well was really, really cool. And yeah, like psychedelics mean a lot to me, and they've changed my life completely. So to be able to incorporate that into a book, it's like I'm writing books about mushrooms, so
gotta add
of course it's going to come in there a little bit. Yeah.
So what do you hope readers take away from your story? Is there any particular feelings or message you really want to resonate with your audience?
Not necessarily, because I think there's a lot of different things that people can pull from it. Obviously, like from my perspective, I just want them to think about mushrooms in a different way. Whether they're more familiar with mushrooms, or whether they're going into it new, or whether they hate mushrooms, or whether they love mushrooms. Like, I just want to kind of like twist their perception of mushrooms in particular ways, where it's like there are moments that show a lot of really like gross body horror, disgusting uses of mushrooms, but then there are also really beautiful moments. And the ability for this single organism, obviously it's not like a single organism as if we're talking about like a hive mind or anything like that, but just like this biological organism of mushrooms is able to elicit so many different reactions from human beings, whether it's like an edible mushroom and the way it's applied in cuisine and the way its flavors make you react, psychedelics and like the potency of those kinds of life-changing experiences for bad or for worse. The like the weirdness of like them as like organisms on a sensory level, whether it's like the sliminess and the texture of the smells, the ways in which mushrooms are both decomposers but also life bringers, the way that they completely change the ecology of a forest and are so fundamental to the processes that make that forest viable. There's just so many, there's a beautiful complexity to mushrooms. And so if someone comes away from this book just being more curious about it, then I'm really, really happy about that. And on the same level also with like things like colonization and imperialism, and thinking about those kind of narratives, not just in fiction, but also throughout history, to pique people's curiosity about the ways in which colonization has shaped our world, and the fact that, you know, like I'm very obviously influenced by Japan as a country. The fungal people are very, very much Japan coded, but a conversation about the ways in which the Japanese empire essentially crumbled the moment the atomic bombs landed on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and the ways in which Allied occupation after the war completely reshaped what Japan was. But at the same time, that this nation has still retained so much of its history and so much of its culture and so much of its pride is kind of a beautiful representation of how another nation imposing itself upon you is no guarantee for complete erasure of your history and of your culture and of your language and of your religion and all these different facets of your life. So if there's a lot for people to take away from it, I just hope there's some aspect of it that piques your curiosity that you're willing to explore a little bit more.
Yeah. All right. You said something, and I'm really curious on this. And all right. Did any scene nearly get cut that you're thrilled you kept, or is there any fungal horror that was too intense for even this story that you ended up taking out?
No and no. I mean, there were scenes that I cut. There's a character named Duncan MacArthur who's like the military governor of Hapon, sort of like the leader of the occupation. And I had scenes where he was, where Henrietta was captured by him. And I just like completely cut that part of the storyline out because I'm like, it wasn't really necessary, especially when it's like, oh, she gets captured again, and then she gets captured again. So it didn't really feel completely necessary. But Duncan MacArthur, it's like there's more to him in the novella that I'm writing, and then also in future books. So it's kind of one of those cases where it's like this guy will become more important in this story, but just like it's not the right time right now. And the body horror stuff, there wasn't anything specific because like I went pretty intense with a lot of body horror stuff.
I was curious if there was an extra level of like craziness.
No, nothing that like I wanted to implement into this story and had to cut because it's like I'm not the kind of person that would shy away from that. But there is stuff in the novella that's like it's a new kind of body horror, which I'm really, really excited about. I'll just use one word, just like imagine body horror and food in the same sentence, and then your mind can run with it.
Okay. All right. I can only imagine. My mind's going all over the place with that one. Definitely with so don't tell me if I'm spoiling anything, but what goes in my mind is the sushi. You mentioned sushi. You mentioned the fungus growing, mushrooms growing from the sushi. So I can only imagine what
No,
kind.
don't picture what happens to the food itself. Imagine what happens to the person who consumes it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's the
Yeah.
It is the mushroom on the sushi, and then someone's eating it, which is then causing internal craziness. Is what's going on in my mind right now.
I'm not going to say anything.
Don't
more,
say anything.
yeah.
I don't want to say anything. I want to go in completely blind and just be like, oh my goodness, what did he do? And that's what I want to go through in my head with going. But that's what visually I was thinking about first, was just a mushroom growing out in sushi, and then I got to eat it. So we'll see. All right,
you can wait.
We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right. So what was the next? My goodness, my mind's over the place now.
It's all good, man.
Is there anything from your book that was extremely popular from the readers that you didn't go through and expect? Anything that popped out that seems like a lot of people like that you didn't think would be as popular as what it was?
Not necessarily, because I knew there's like one character that I knew people would like, and that's Koji. And people liked him, so I wasn't surprised at all by that. And that works to my favor. Obviously, it's hard to write like a book from the perspective of someone as challenging as Henrietta. It's like she's racist. She's not like explicitly, but like if you read between the lines and kind of track her behavior, she's very narcissistic. And Koji is kind of like her foil throughout the book. And so people will obviously be very happy that like Koji is a POV character in book 2 and all consecutive books in the series. So it has been really cool for me to expand upon this story, so that it's not just Henrietta's. It is called the Hoffman Report, but book 1 is like really the start of Henrietta's journey, and books 2, 3, and 4 are a lot of these different like converging storylines.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. All right. It's time for the ridiculous questions. I hope you're ready. It's going to get nuts. All right.
Let's go for it.
We have 4 questions. I'm going to let you pick which question you want first. 1 through 4.
3.
3. All right. If Hoffman had to sing a karaoke song, what is it, and how intense is her performance?
Ooh, okay. Oh, this is a good one, dude. This is a good one. Let me think. I need to I can't remember the name of the song, but I have like the lyrics in the head. What's the song? Creep by Radiohead would be the song that Henrietta sings. And she would be initially nervous, but then she would slowly get into it.
Get way too into it.
I
feel like she would get like by the second chorus, it's like, oh, this is not the first time that she's sang this song. Yeah.
So Creep by Radiohead for
Creep
sure.
by Radiohead. Awesome. Hey, Nicole, how's it going?
Hi, Nicole.
You definitely need to go through and grab Mushroom Blues.
What's Rachel's is that Rachel Aaron's book by A Silver Thread, I believe is the name. Yep.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Very good book.
It's on my to buy list.
Yeah. And actually Rachel's was a finalist, so it was in the top 10. So
yeah, I want to go through and buy and read them all. I just haven't had the opportunity to go through. All right, so let's jump in. So we got Hoffman singing, which is awesome. All right, so you're thrown into your book for 24 hours. What's the first thing you're going to go through and do?
Oh, dude. I'm gonna go to Don Bon Diner and get some food. Like I'm gonna go have breakfast at Don Bon Diner, and I think, man, okay, this is really hard because there's so many places that I would want to go hang out. I would go to the Shelf, even though I'm human. People at the Shelf would hate me. I would just love to go visit an island that is made entirely of mycelium and mushrooms, and just explore, and like try some like local fish and crabs and stuff like that, and just like people watch on the Shelf. And that would probably take a long time. So I think what I would do next, like when I was living in Berlin, I loved going to abandoned spaces. I would love, even though like I would probably get like some form of radiation sickness or something, I would go to old Kanoko and I would just like go explore like all the destroyed, devastated buildings. Obviously not during a blizzard, but like I would go check that out. You know, maybe like on a fine summer's day when it's not like
Not too bad.
not too snowy. Yeah.
Oh man. All right, next one. If you could sit down and interview any of your characters, doesn't have to be the main cast, it could be any of your characters for one drink. Who
Okay.
would it be, and what's one question you would want to go through and ask them?
Ooh, okay. Definitely Koji.
Mhm.
Even though I know the answer to this question, I would definitely ask him like what he experienced during the Spore War. So what I would say like what was your life but like before the Spore War, and then how did the war change you, or like what do you experience during the war? Even though I know the answers to these, so I'm like
Cheating a little bit.
yeah, I'm cheating a little bit.
All right, last one I have on here, and this one could be it could potentially be the easiest one. So your book is getting adapted into a movie, a show. We'll talk about specifics later on, but they're going to go through and start throwing in product placements. What would be possibly be the worst product tie-in they could go through and launch for your book?
I mean, okay, the adaptation I would want would be an anime. I already know this. And the people I would want to I can't remember the name of the studio, but it's like I would either want the animation team, like the studio that did the Castlevania anime, or the people who did the Cyberpunk Edge Runner anime.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Both of those teams I think would be really, really cool. And then I just think anime would be like the ideal adaptation format for this world, because it's like think about like all the costuming and all that crap for like a live action. It's like nah, man. So definitely that, and then the worst product placement, probably like some antifungal foot cream would be like the worst product placement for this. Be like, have you spent too much time in Neo Kanoko? Just like rub this shit all over your feet.
Oh man, that's awesome. That'd be so funny. I could picture the bottle too. I can picture it. It's gonna be like blue with the net. Yeah, that's awesome.
And it would just be like, it would be like I don't know, like some fungal person, you know, like with a really like gross fungal foot.
And it's like, does this look like your foot?
Oh my god, it'll be like the really horrendous pictures that they have on I don't think they have it in the States necessarily, but a lot of the countries do, where it's like on cigarette packages and stuff like that. Be like, this is what'll happen to your mouth and your fingernails and stuff. Be like that, just for like antifungal cream
for people's feet. Oh man, that honestly, that's hilarious. I kind of want to see it. So maybe put that in the back of your mind for advertising down the line, for
just like a cheeky little like one-off drawing that I throw into one of the books.
Oh man. All right. Off to the second part. Now, this is called lightning round. I don't want you thinking. First thing comes to your head, that's what it's going to be. All right. We have, I think, about 8 or 9 questions. So I'm going to go pretty quick. All right. Favorite detective character in fiction?
Ooh, Rick Deckard from Blade Runner.
Most underrated genre mashup?
I'm going to say cozy horror.
Cozy horror. Okay. I'm writing that down. Okay. All right. You get one superpower, but it has to be fungus related. What is it?
Oh, I want mycelium extending from my body.
Oh, okay. Nice. What is the first book that truly messed you up in a good way?
Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer.
I've never heard of that. All right. By Jeff. All right. I'm going to have to get that name again. All right. Henrietta or Koji, who was more fun to write?
Koji. Henrietta was much more challenging.
First fictional city you'd move to in a heartbeat?
Oof. I would love to live in Rivendell. Rivendell would just be such a tranquil place to live. You know, I feel like I could be my best self there.
Hardest scene you had to write.
This is a spoiler.
Okay, we'll skip that one. We'll skip it. One book you wish you wrote.
I'm going to say again, Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. Okay. That book transformed me. So,
all right, last one, and this one's my favorite. This one's on every single one because I find it amusing. If your book could have a theme song, what would it be?
Damn, this is a really difficult one. A theme song for this. I mean, I do have a Spotify playlist, so that's kind of cheating. But I do think "Creep" by Radiohead is actually a pretty is a pretty good applicable one because it's reflective of the characters and the world.
Mm-hmm. All right, we'll go with "Creep" by Radiohead. Awesome. All right, that was all the questions. Awesome, loved it. All right, so Annihilation
by Jeff Vandermeer. There's also a movie adaptation, but I would definitely recommend reading the book. Right, there's 3 books. It's the Southern Reach trilogy.
All right, I'm gonna Google this real quick. No,
and the movie is like very cool and visually just like off the rails, but it is definitely a loose adaptation, kind of combining elements of all 3 books. So there's Annihilation, and then there's Authority, and Acceptance is the 3rd one. Actually, there's 4. There's a new one that came out just like last October, which is sort of like a prequel.
Okay, I've never heard of these, but yes, Southern Reach, Authority, Acceptance, and Absolution.
Absolution's the new one. So first one is Annihilation, book 2 is Authority, book 3 is Acceptance, book 4 / prequel is Absolution.
Cool. All right, I have this now on my list. I'm going to go through. The covers look awesome.
Mm-hmm.
The
covers are beautiful. Yeah,
very cool. All right, cool. Love that. Love it. Never heard of it. Always cool getting a new TVR added onto my list.
Yeah, I've got all kinds of weird recs if anyone wants them for their TVR. So feel free to reach out.
Are there any genres, themes, or styles of stories that you haven't explored that you really would like to?
In my writing?
In your writing, yeah.
Oh, definitely. Like I have so many ideas. Like I'm very much into that like genre blending kind of vibe. Mm-hmm. And so when it comes to the fungal verse, I've kind of set it up in such a way where every series or every sort of like distinct piece within the fungal verse is sort of like a different kind of genre mashup. So the Hoffman Report is murder mystery and noir and police procedural. There's a trilogy that's set decades in the future, and that one is much more cyberpunk and sort of like techno thriller. And there's some other books that are set like hundreds of years in the past, and those are very much like throwbacks to like samurai fiction. So it's kind of like fungal samurai type vibe, but like with more weird fungal fantasy elements thrown into it. So everything is very much just mixing it up and stirring the pot. And even the stuff that I want to write that's outside of the fungal verse is, playing around with different mixes of genres. Yeah. So that's very, very much my thing. And I don't think I'll ever get tired of being like, okay, like what genre can I just like throw together for this?
Give it a try. Oh, so yeah. Are we going to get any Spore Wars stories?
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So that one is like I want to do kind of like a standalone, but like definitely like a multi POV
military.
Sort of like just war thriller type deal. And really show the differences by having POV characters who are on the fungal side of things, but also on the human side of things.
Awesome. I'm very intrigued because that's one of my favorite parts. And we're going through and talk about that. And I was like, man, how was that like? What kind of chaos? Because I'm trying not to spoil anything, but there's some things within this book where you're like, I can't even imagine being on the human side of fighting these
fungal people
and what they can go through and do. And it's like, I don't even know how it would go through and happen, but I think that's very cool.
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of playing on something like the Vietnam War, where you have a much more technologically superior force with the Americans and the French going against, and the South Vietnamese going against, but with the backing of the United States and the French, going against the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese, and the thrilling kind of drama of the war, just based on the fact that the North Vietnamese, A, they were fighting on home territory, and B, they were able to change their tactics in such a way where they were still able to compete with the opposing force. And so it's like the introduction of guerrilla tactics and things like that. And so you can imagine with the fungal people, like fungal guerrilla tactics, you know, and this is something that actually plays into Koji's story quite directly, where it's referenced in the book, something that happens between him and another character. And that's kind of like my idea for like a short story, is sort of something between these two characters. But just imagining like what a guerrilla force of fungals would be doing against like technologically superior human Caprinians, body horror would be introduced into this like wartime scenario.
I feel like you could write a whole trilogy more, and then we'll jump back to my last few questions I have for you.
Okay.
But I feel like from the war perspective, there's so much you could do with it. Like you can have battles, you can do stories specifically on prisoners from each side, of like what it's like to be a prisoner if you are on the spore side, or if you're on the human side, what it's like and the torture they have to go through and what keeps them strong to push through, where you can really get deep into the culture of these people, even when they're going through extremely hard times during war. I don't know. I feel like there's all kind of avenues you can do with this. And just from the spore war itself, but then knowing, hey, I'm going to go hundreds of years this way, I'm going to go this way. It sounds like you have a whole timeline together on kind of what you're going to go through and do with this world. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and I have like a literal timeline where it's like I know like when things took place, and, like, which books. I can
imagine you have it like, all right, this year that these are some stuff that I can imagine you have something actually written out. I love it.
Yeah, and like the Spore War is one of those things where I'm really looking forward to explore that, because like I think for me personally, like the Vietnam War would definitely be a the like a combination of the Vietnam War and the wars in the Middle East would definitely be sort of influential historical lodestones for the kind of horror and drama of that kind of story, where it is getting into questions of imperialism and colonialism and stuff like that, but also, you know, cultural differences and wars where there is a huge imbalance between the power of one side versus the other. And then there are also big questions at play in terms of like, why are they doing this? And people will learn as the Hoffman Report goes on, like the real reason why the Spore War happened. And if you know anything about the wars in the Middle East, then you probably have some sense of what it comes down to.
Yeah, that's so cool. Because so much you can do with it. Yeah. Anyway, I feel like I've talked about that. I'm a huge nonfiction fan also. So I read a bunch of like military stories from first person, third person perspective of what people go through. And I just had the idea. I literally have Ghost Soldiers right there, which is about prisoners of war and what they had to go through to keep themselves motivated, and just all the trauma they were going through until they end up getting saved. One of the best nonfiction books I've ever read. Highly recommend it. That's why it's always right there behind my head of my stuff. So, all right, jump back to you. Not about my random obsession.
No, but I'm definitely going to check out Ghost Soldiers. That sounds great.
It's so good, man. I highly recommend it. It's edge of your seat. It gets you hooked at the very beginning. And these guys constantly try to escape, and they're constantly getting caught. and it's crazy how these guys are. You compare the men in this story to modern day men, and you go like, yeah, I couldn't do it. I couldn't survive what these guys have to go through. It's crazy of like, oh, all right, we're going to keep going through, and how they pushed back against their captors of like, all right, we're going to poison them and make them think that we have the antidote. And it's just like they screwed with their captors' heads. It was awesome. It was awesome. And it's all true stuff based off of
amazing of like personal accounts. Yeah.
Personal accounts all through it of, oh yeah, we did this, we did that. Yeah. We had a preacher who we tell them like could save people's lives. It was just like this constant
the psychological warfare that's going on is amazing.
And it was like these prisoners were doing that to their captors. It was fantastic. So it's a fun one. It's a fun one. All right. So jumping back to you. So this is your first one. You have a plan. You said at least four more books and a bunch of novellas you want to write for the next 20 years. What does success look like for you personally and also professionally as a writer? What does success look like?
I mean, for me, just on a personal level, like success is just people reading my books and wanting to read my books. Because I am in the privileged position of not having to depend on writing to sustain myself or to sustain my family financially. So from my perspective, it's like, if people want to read my books and they choose to read my books, in my mind, that counts as a success. And so if I'm going to do this for years and years and years to come, and people want to continue reading my books for years and years and years, then that is just sustained success and a really lucky position to be in, really. So for my mind, it's basically that. Like, I don't really care about the money. The money is good because it helps me. I mean, basically, like, all the money I've earned from Mushroom Blues paid for itself, paid for the audiobook. Like, I'm completely out of the red for my investment in Mushroom Blues as a whole. And so now I can just invest in the next thing. And for my mind, like, if I'm not losing money and people want to keep reading my books, then I'm totally happy with that. And who knows, like, I might explore potential avenues of like going hybrid, maybe publishing some stuff with a traditional publisher and self-publishing other things. So for me, I'm not really in it for the money. And I'm just really excited when people want to read and engage with my work. So,
All right, we have Grifton says,
dude, you're making me blush. God damn.
Oh man.
Oh, Caden's here from Love and Lore.
Hey, Caden's awesome.
He wins for like, if there's a yearbook for SFF and self-publishing, him and his wife get like cutest couple in the yearbook.
They 100% would get cutest couple. And then I think it's awesome that his book's cover is so horrific that Amazon says we can't promote this. We cannot.
But it's not that horrific, in all honesty. It's just like, it's like a vampire with blood on his face. How is that horrific?
I love it. I love the cover.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic, but I think it's hilarious that he was like, hey, can I promote my book? And Amazon was like, no, no. But yet he's still like, people are buying his book still. So I'm like, I don't understand.
Yeah,
Amazon,
but like, what are the standards, right? What are the standards? There's like straight up book covers that are pornography on Amazon. So I don't know what their standards are.
Yeah, who knows?
I don't know. Caden, maybe that vampire is like way too sensual. He's like,
well, I told him it looks just like him. Like, I feel like he did it on purpose, so it's him.
I mean, his wife is the artist, so she's drawing from experience, drawing from her immediate surroundings.
Yeah,
so.
he was like, I need an attractive vampire looking like this. She's like, I got one.
Yeah. That's just the mental image that's in Seema's head every day. It's just like, oh, Caden.
There we go.
Vampires in bikinis.
Yes,
oh yeah,
exactly. Yes.
That's what we need.
He said 100%. Yeah, it's you, man. It's you.
Yeah. You're a sex symbol in in the SFF indie world. You got this, man.
Yep.
Oh my god.
Oh,
We're going off
God.
the rails, dude.
It's so funny. So funny. What were we talking about? I got out of place. Yes, there we are. What kind of readers do you think would resonate most with Mushroom Blues in your world?
I think people who are just like really into weird fiction. So if you're, I mean, yeah, like if you, unlike Josh, if you've heard of Jeff Vandermeer, or if you've read China Mieville, or if you've read Philip K. Dick, or if you've read, there's all kinds of things. Like even someone who loves Mexican Gothic by Silvio Moreno Garcia, or What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. I think if you're someone who really clicks with that type of horror and that type of atmosphere, if you like the Last of Us video games or the TV series kind of thing, like there's a lot that you can really draw parallels across these things. But also, like, I think True Detective, if you're really into like the movies by David Fincher as well, like Seven, or what's another good one? So Seven, or there's the TV show called Mindhunter. Or like, some of Christopher Nolan's like earlier books, like Memento is a really fantastic movie. If you're really into these like strange kind of mind-bendy, weird crime thrillers / mysteries, then I think you'll really dig Mushroom Blues. So, but at the same time, it's like this book does have like a lot of world building in it. But it's not like in your face. I don't have a prologue where I'm just info dumping shit on you. So don't worry about that.
There's none of that. You experience it very quickly as you're flying through the city of like, oh, this is what's going on. Oh, this is here. So it's fantastic. We have Josephine jumped in. Hey, Josephine.
Hi.
How's it going, my friend? All right. You answered my next question, which is fantastic. I was going to ask you, once someone finished your book, what movies, video games, books someone should read, and you rattled off TV shows, and you just rattled all.
Actually, if you want a good video game rec, Disco Elysium. That one's fantastic. I know Caden loves that video game as well. I think he played it with his wife. They did like a playthrough together. But if you want like a really strange noir video game, that one is more. It's rooted in like systems of like dialogue and kind of like player choice and stuff like that. And it's not first person. It's like an isometric top down kind of view of this character who's essentially is like an alcoholic detective, but like is slowly losing their mind and like having voices speak to them. But the voices in their head are also like a gameplay mechanic. So it's really cool in that sense.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So what books are you reading right now? What's on your list? What are you reading?
I finished reading a bunch of stuff for the podcast. So this is one of those times where I'm like, I don't know, like 10 for the podcast, at least one for me. So I just started, excuse me. I just started The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, because I really do like mythological retellings. And so I read Circe, I can't remember how long ago, but I really, really enjoyed that book. Also by Madeline Miller. So I just decided like, screw it, I'm going to start Song of Achilles and burn through like 50 pages in like the last day and a half. So off to a good start. And then I'm also, because so many people have recommended it, and MJ, my co-host, swears by it, I'm going to start Dungeon Crawler Carl. Well, I've actually read book one, but it was like a while ago. And so I'm going to reread book one and then start reading the rest of the series. So that's where I'm at right now.
It's fun. It's a fun series.
I think like right now, I want something fun, something that's like a bit more of like a enjoyable palate cleanser. You know what I mean?
That's exactly what this book is. And that's what I use it as. All right, I kind of need to just like sit back, relax, have a fun ride. I just listen to Dungeon Crawler and I just let it go. and just being like, this is just going to be nonsense violence.
Just like goofy ass time. It's like playing the game. I can't remember how long it's been since I played it, but there's like the games like Duke Nukem or Serious Sam back in the day. Which is like there's like absolutely no through line here. You're just like shooting pigs in the face, like weird pig mutants and stuff. And it's like, yeah, these games are great for that, for the release. You know what I mean? So I think I'm excited to get back into Dungeon Crawler Call.
It's fun. You'll enjoy it. So you like mythical retellings. Have you read Stephen Fry's Mythos series?
No.
You need to read Stephen Fry's Mythos.
I do love Stephen Fry. He's a great. He's just as just like an entertainer is amazing. But I love anything he narrates. So I would imagine like he wrote this.
He wrote it and narrated the books. And so he has I have the first three. His newest one is not out in America yet, which I'm very upset with Steven, but it's out across the seas. But he has his 4 books. We have Mythos, and then he goes over Greek mythology and all of these.
Cool.
And then Heroes, and then Troy, and then the last one is Odyssey, where he goes over that story.
Amazing.
And I've read them; they're fantastic. But if you like his narration, he narrates the book, and it is so damn good.
That sounds like an audio. That sounds like an audiobook for me.
It is it's fantastic.
Hell yeah.
But what's cool about the book, it does have pictures and stuff in there, so it's always cool to go through and kind of get a little bit more insight.
Ooh, nice. Okay.
So it's cool to go along with it, but definitely if you're going to pick one, 100% audiobook, Stephen Fry. And I don't understand why more people don't talk about Stephen Fry's books. They're all fantastic.
Or just Stephen Fry in general. He's great.
He's so funny.
Yeah.
He's so funny. He cracks me up. But yeah, he's fantastic. I can't remember that show that he hosted for a while. Q. It was Q. That was the name of the show. So he hosted a show forever. It was called Q. It was quite hilarious. So yeah.
I don't know if I've seen that one.
You haven't seen it? Yeah, it's
no.
It's not a
yeah. It's like Q. Is it? It looks like QI or something like that.
QI, yeah.
QI, yeah.
QI, yeah. Hilarious. The show cracks me up.
Nice, man.
So.
No, but Stephen Fry's great. He's great.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
We got lots of recs for people in the.
I know. I need to just make a laundry list of people to go through and read. All right. Well, that is all I have. I really do appreciate you stopping by, Adrian. How can people get in touch with you? How can people go through and buy your books? How can they go through and support you?
Yeah, you can find me pretty much anywhere at Adrian M. Gibson. Just feel free to reach out, say hi. I'm most active on Instagram, like just on like a personal level. Twitter's more like I'll just post shit here and we'll see what happens. And you can check out my website, adrianmgibson.com. You can sign up for my newsletter. If you sign up tonight, then you'll get a new newsletter tomorrow. So it's the last Wednesday of every month. And then you can get Mushroom Blues pretty much everywhere. Like obviously you can go to Amazon, you can order it in paperback, hardcover, ebook, audiobook on Audible, narrated by the amazing Imogen Church. And you can go buy the soundtrack. You can go listen to the Spotify playlist. Just search Mushroom Blues on Spotify. You'll find it. But you can also order it from like brick and mortar bookstores. So it's like, if you want to go to Barnes and Noble, you won't find it on the shelves, but you can just ask them, can you order this for me and I will pay you? They will do that. So that's also a possibility, or an indie bookstore, like any bookstore really. And then you can check out SFF Addicts, new episodes every Tuesday, just on whichever podcast app you like. But specifically you can watch it in video on Spotify or YouTube. So yeah, we just recently had some awesome 2-parter with Joe Abercrombie. We got some really, really exciting stuff coming up in the next couple months as well. So I'll tell Josh off air and he'll lose his shit, but awesome. you can all bask in the mystery of it.
Love it. Adrian, again, thank you so much for joining. All the people in the comments going through and making this hilarious and engaging as always. I really appreciate all of you. All the people watching on recap, I appreciate it. Make sure you leave a comment, and I'll have all Adrian's website information in the description below. Check it out. Check out the newsletter. Buy the book. It's amazing. You're not going to miss out. But I appreciate everyone. Have a good rest of your night, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.